quite happy to continue staying on there, but it is what it is. And nevertheless, it's really nice to be here to see you guys again. And so, as a church, you've been supporting us for, I think, since about 98, or maybe the year 2000. It's been a long time. And so our organisation, Empower Asia Latin America, you can see the countries that we work in. Our whole thing is we're really trying to develop Christian leadership. And so we have about 300 young people that we look after, 24/7. And spread over about 8 countries. And we have about 21 projects. Most of 19 of them are discipleship homes where young people live in with our people. We don't have any missionaries on the field. Everything's run by local people, which saves us a lot of money, and it saves us a lot of time, and we can go into these places that missionaries can't get access to. So that's also really good. Our whole mission kind of kicked off in Tokoroa, which is like Cook Island Central in Tokoroa. So what island were you guys on? Moki? Never heard of it. Wow, that's out in the boonies. Wow. Okay. That's because so many of our young people are Cook Islanders in Tokoroa back in the day. So anyway, it's cool to be here. And again, our whole aim is to try and develop Christian leadership. And by using local people, we don't have to bring in Westernism stuff and Western cultural stuff in all the time. Although sometimes it's good to do that. And also the theology and the values that we have when the kids are taught, it's local thinking and it's local values. So it's really cool. Now for us, a lot of our young people now have grown up. These guys are approaching nearly 40 years of age, and so a whole lot of our young people now run our work in all those different countries. So they're Cambodian guys, and one guy's a surgeon and the other guy's a human rights lawyer. So the human rights lawyer boy, the one in the white, he's our board chair. So that's kind of what we do. And so you fellas have been supporting our work in Yangon, our boys work for, like forever. And that's some of the guys, and some of them have gone on into ministry, etc. But that's some of the boys that we have at present. And Myanmar or Burma is just like, what's going on there? They've had that massive earthquake, and then there's a civil war going on. Do you remember I came here and I said one of our boys was in prison, and he got 30 years in prison? He's standing right in the middle, in front of the little boy in the check shirt. He's standing behind that little boy in the check shirt. So he got out. He's out of prison. But the situation in Burma is just dire. But you don't hear much about it on local news. So that's what you guys have been supporting. And then in recent times, we've been working in Central America, in Honduras and El Salvador. And we're also looking at it in the future into Guatemala as well. And we're wanting to kick off a work for girls in Honduras, in a city called San Pedro Sula. And San Pedro Sula is said to be, from year to year, not every year, but is said to be the most dangerous, murderous city to live in the world. Not every year, but some years. And so for girls, the gangs like MS-13, who you might have heard Mr. Trump talk about, or the other gang that he's just now said is also a terrorist organisation, is Barrio 18. Those two gangs, they like to get girls when they are 11 or 12 or 13 years of age. The prettier they are, the better. And they use them for all manner of things that you can imagine. Plus they use them for couriering drugs around the city because they're girls, so people don't notice them. Commonly these kids will be pregnant in a year or two. And so you'll see girls who are pretty and about 17, and you can see they've got a child with them, and they live in a gang zone, so you kind of know that girl's history. So we're trying to get a hold of girls who can end up in that situation in San Pedro Sula. And if girls join a gang at a young age, a lawyer told us, a Guatemalan lawyer told us that those girls on average will be dead by the age of 16. They'll kill them, or they just get sick of them, or whatever it is. And so there's all manner of horror stories that I won't go into. But when you hear about this sort of stuff, how does one respond to what's going on in Myanmar or in Gaza or Ukraine or with girls in San Pedro Sula? How do we respond to that? I guess for a lot of people, you just throw your hands up in the air and go, what am I meant to do about it? It's not my country. It's not my problem. The government that those people, the country that they live in, the government's got to sort that out. But if the government is corrupt and self-serving and couldn't care less about people, what happens then? And or maybe for some of us, we just say, and I get it if we think this. If we just go, oh, the problem, it's been going on forever, it's unsolvable, it's never going to get solved, why would I bother trying? Because it just doesn't get solved. Or we might think the problem's just too big. Again, what do I do about it? Maybe some of us are desensitized to it. That's really common. If you're like that, no criticism from me. And it could be that you say, all my life I've grown up and I've seen poverty in this country and that country. The Gaza Strip, I've heard of it all my life. And I've seen particular people running around with Kalashnikovs and AK-47s and machetes. I've seen it all my life, and it's just like, what am I meant to do about it? I feel overwhelmed by it all. Some of us, the way we respond might be to say, I'm going to support our World Vision kid. Cool, that's good. For us, we can only help some people. We can't help many. We're a drop in an ocean. But for us, we try and find really needy, really impoverished people who are smart, who have drive and ambition. And over a period of years, we seek to disciple them aiming to try and develop them to become Christian leaders who will outreach to other people. So in essence, what we do is we get a hold of social welfare cases and we try and develop them and then set them loose back out on their communities again. In New Zealand, when I travel around, because I live here, when I travel around and I watch TV and media and whatever, by far the greatest emphasis on caring for the poor is the poor within New Zealand. By far. And while I get that, the level of poverty outside of our country, our little country that really is a drop in an ocean, our little country, the level of poverty and deprivation overseas is just stunning. And yet commonly, when we think of poverty, we think of people in New Zealand. But how we measure poverty in New Zealand, how we actually measure it, is nothing compared to the level of poverty that our people overseas experience. It doesn't even compare. But I'm not saying we shouldn't care for people in New Zealand. Not at all. And so I want to talk a little bit about this idea of ordo mortis. And it's a Catholic term that was actually originally penned by Augustine. Actually, it was Augustine. And then from there, Thomas Aquinas jumped in and got more involved in it. The reason why it's become a little topical, and maybe some of you know about this, is because the Vice President of the US, J.D. Vance, has become a Catholic. Fine, good for him. And he talked about ordo mortis, but he didn't talk about it correctly. And so he got pulled up on it by somebody that if you're a Catholic, you don't want to get pulled up by, the Pope. So some of you would know this, right? Yeah, some do. Yeah. So, what JD Vance said is what I think is commonly what New Zealanders, Americans, Aussies, English think. So I'm not condemning the guy, and this isn't a political statement on behalf of the Democrat Party of the United States of America. I'm just saying this is what JD said. And so he said, as an American citizen, actually I'll just put my glasses down so I can read it properly. As an American leader, but just also as an American citizen, and I think these are crunch words, your compassion belongs first to your fellow citizens. That doesn't mean you hate people from outside of your own borders, but there's this old school concept, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbour, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritise the rest of the world. The Pope wasn't happy. He didn't mention him by name, but he wasn't very happy about it, and I get it. Of course, I'm biased because I'm a missionary working overseas, so I'm a little biased. But JD was talking about this certainly in reference to the idea of America first and the policies of that party. Now, again, if you're a Trump supporter, I don't care. Knock yourself out. I don't care. This isn't a political statement. But the Pope jumped in, not mentioning him by name, because he said that our care for the poor is not based on this kind of like concentric circles of concern, where first we start off with our family, and then our neighbours, and then our street, and then our community, and yada, 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 until the outside world. The Pope said, that's not really how love and concern for the poor works. And we would do well, he said, to meditate on the parable of the Good Samaritan. And that's what we're going to do this morning. Now, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Some of you guys, you've heard this parable for the last 60 years, and I'm not going to tell you anything new or deep in this, but I still want us to go through it, because the argument or the idea that we have concentric circles of concern radiating out, and then once we've dealt with them, we move out, and then finally we help the people on the outside, that's people outside of America or outside of New Zealand, is a little bizarre. But nevertheless, I think a lot of us kind of think that way. So let's have a look at Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. I'll read it. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your strength and with all of your mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. You have indeed answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But then the guy decides to get a little bit further on into it. And you'll see there that I've marked in yellow. The yellow bit, can you see it, or am I too tall? Can you see it? The yellow piece is from the Living Bible, just that one piece, because it helps us to understand. So it says, you have, but he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbour? Wanting to justify his lack of love for some kinds of people. Okay? And then we'll jump back into it again. In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. You've heard the story before, right? They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him. These are Jewish religious aristocracy. He passed by on the other side. But then a Samaritan, as he travelled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him, went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, please, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra costs. And then Jesus asks, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbour to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. Jesus is such a stirrer. He really stirred it up saying this. Because once again, he's paying out on the religious aristocracy of Judaism at the time. He's paying out on them. Because the hero of the parable, of course, is the Samaritan. And again, a lot of you will probably know this, that the Samaritans were despised. They were the despicable, mixed blood, mongrelized religion, mongrelized, awful culture. The way they lived was inferior to us Jewish people. Their practices was inferior. They were dirt beneath our feet. They were not welcome. They were not liked. They were hated by the Jewish people. And yet Jesus, ever the stirrer, makes this man, and it's only a parable, it's not a true story, but he makes this man the centerpiece and the hero of the parable. So if we just jump into this just a little bit, it appears from the parable, and I readily admit I may be reading too much into this, but it appears from the parable that this man, whoever he was traveling down to Jericho on his own. Like seriously, because it was called the Bloody Way or the Red Road. Because if you wanted to mug somebody, if you wanted to kill somebody, hey, knock yourself out. That's the place to do it. And so people would travel in convoy. This fool, apparently, it seems like maybe he travelled on his own. Stupid. And this Samaritan comes across him, and we see here the religious aristocracy don't help him. And we'll look at Deuteronomy in a minute that talks a wee bit about this. But they wouldn't help him. And then the Samaritan, this despised man, he does the following through his actions. He does this. He risked his own time and labour and life to look after this guy. He went above and beyond. But there's more. And this is what I think JD and others, including Kiwis, need to understand. We work outside of just our own ethnic group. That's what we're called to do. That's what the Samaritan did. He didn't just help New Zealanders or Israelis or Samaritans. He went outside of his ethnic group. He went outside of his own race. He went outside of his own citizenship. He went outside of his own spiritual belief system. And then, of course, he went outside of the prejudice that these people actually had, including the victim, towards him. He went outside of that as well. His thinking on the idea of caring for the poor or the needy or the disadvantaged was universal. It's not concentric circles of concern. Now, if you're caring for the poor and needy in your community, awesome. But it's fair to say, don't just care for them. Care for the brotherhood of man, not just for our own people. And I think a lot of New Zealanders, particularly in economic times like we have now, and we're always being told how poor we are and how tough it's going, and how the government's not doing enough, that we tend to lean in and support just the stuff in our own country when there's so much going on overseas. You think inflation's bad here? Try going overseas. Oh, it's far worse. It's far, far worse. What we are experiencing here in economic times is nothing in comparison to what so many of those countries overseas are experiencing. It's nothing. But we forget that because we're caught in New Zealand thinking, New Zealand-centric thinking, New Zealand news thinking. But what's going on overseas is like, wow. It's far, far worse. And so JD got dragged over the coals a little bit with this. And fair enough too. But when you have given money to our organisation, which you've been doing for a long time, you've been caring for the poor and needy overseas. And truly, I can tell you, I don't have time, but I can tell you so many good stories about transformation in the lives of our young people. Like, it's stunning. Some of the transformations are just like unbelievable. And they're so unbelievable, we're starting to put together 10 chapters on transformed lives that we've seen in our ministry. And some of the transformations are like, wow, unbelievable. So we're just beginning to do that. I've done 4 of the 10 stories already. But as a church, you understand that we need to care for the poor and needy everywhere. You've got that. But a lot of people, they don't have it. They don't get it. And so, you know, the way we measure poverty in New Zealand, the way we literally measure poverty in New Zealand is nothing. It's way above the level of poverty that we see overseas. So again, thank you for your support. And then in Deuteronomy 10, verse 18, He, God, defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. God's heart is not just for this bunch of people. And we see this revealed fully in the Gospels, where people from outside of the Jewish system would approach Jesus for prayer and healing. And sometimes he almost came across as quite hard on some of those people. But boom, they get healed. And so our concern should be for all. And if you're giving, I want you to take pride in some of the things that we're seeing. Now, in our last newsletter, if you want to get our newsletter, sign up on that at the info desk. I'll be standing out there. But in our last newsletter, we talked about some girls. I'll show you our girls. These are some of our Burmese girls. Nice girls. And so they've all just finished the national exams at grade 10, grade 12, grade 10, can't remember. And so they've finished high school. And to pass the national board exams is not easy. Most kids fail. But they will pass. And so now the 3 girls on the left have decided that they want to serve God. And so they are going off to Bible college. They're going to get a Bachelor of Theology. They want to serve God. And pretty much these are girls who knew nothing about God. They came from the boondocks and very impoverished. And just over a period of years, we've discipled them, etc. And so they are now at Bible college. And then the 2 girls on the right-hand side, they haven't gone to Bible college. Instead, they're now school teachers. They've become school teachers. So it's cool, eh? And these are girls who are unnoticed, insignificant, kind of, as cruel as it sounds, nobodies in their society. And so one of our girls there, the girl on the right-hand side with the glasses, this is her a year or so ago. Her name is Asweg. And she comes from a family where there are 9 kids. So they are immediately impoverished because they come from the boondocks. The parents are farmers, so there's no money in it for them. They come from the boondocks, and they've got to try and look after all of these kids. So she went to school in her village and could get up to grade 4 and graduate. And the parents said, well done there, that's enough. Grade 4, excellent. So now you can stay home, look after granny, look after the younger kids, and that's the end of your education. But she said, no, I want to carry on. I want to carry on in my education. The parents were like, okay. So she had to travel 3 or 4 hours from her village to go to the next school to study year 5. And of course she couldn't travel 3 or 4 hours and then come home each night. It's too much. So she managed to find a room that she could rent in another township where she could study. And she's only about, at the time, she's only 10 years of age. And she manages to stay in this place, and she graduates year 8, finally. And then the parents again, they say, well done dear, excellent, now come home. And she says, no, Mum and Dad, I want to carry on with my study. And we love getting girls like this, because they're motivated. And so she ended up coming to us. And of course now she's just become a school teacher. And she's an insignificant, but as cruel as it sounds, she is an insignificant nobody that anybody really knows anything about. And so many of our young people are like that. They are powerless. They have truncated education. They are unnoticed. They are forgotten. And they can't escape poverty. They can't get out of the poverty trap. They can't get out of it unless somebody helps them out. They can't break out of poverty. Many of them, they lack family. They don't even have a family, some of them. And so we take in young people like that. And we have seen some really stunning results. So do you remember that tribe there that we work with? They are the Wa tribe in Myanmar, Burma. They're on the Chinese border. And they got taught how to make methamphetamine. And so they are the top producers of methamphetamine in the world, according to the DEA in America. They have the biggest drug narco army in the world, and they used to be headhunters. So we decided 10 years ago that we'd start working with Wa kids because it sounded like fun. And so now, the boy on the left, who came to us when he was 14 or something, he's just about to finish a Master in Divinity. And he's second in his class, and he averages 93.5%. And there's 2 other mates there. They're still just doing bachelor's degrees. But they've already sat down and they're talking about how they're going to start planting churches in the Wa state amongst their people. And so some of our old Wa boys who have finished with us now and have gone back to their villages and their farmers now, those guys want to plant, the two boys there, they came from the same village as a whole lot of our other boys. And they'll go back there and they'll plant a church within that village, because there is no church. And they'll bring in all their Wa boy mates, some of them are married now, etc. But those Wa boys that we had who came to our home were very positive on God, very, but never carried on very far with their education. So we use these guys now to plant churches. And then talking about the girl in San Pedro Sula again, the situation there is dire. It's just appalling. And again, I can tell you stories about that place that I don't have time to tell you. But again, if you are pretty and you live in a gang zone, it is a curse. It's nothing to be happy about. We're trying to kick off a girls' work in Honduras, in San Pedro Sula. In San Pedro Sula, year to year is one of the most violent cities in the world. So MS-13 and Barrio 18 are the main gangs in San Pedro Sula. So they will find girls and say, that girl there, she needs to join our gang. And she might only be 11, 12, 13, 14 or something. And like I said before, commonly they're pregnant a year later. And we're kicking off a thing called the Wealth Pie Collective. You should have one of these, eh? If you haven't, just come and see me, I'll give you one. But what we're trying to do is, economic times here aren't so easy at the moment. And sometimes we've got money, sometimes we haven't. What we're trying to do is, we're trying to say, compared to the rest of the world, we've got a pretty good wealth pie here. In fact, you and I have a pretty good wealth pie here compared to the rest of the world. We want you to give up one slice of your wealth pie and give it overseas for poor people. What does one slice cost you? It costs you $100. And it's $100 per year. It's not much. It's $1.92 a week. It's not much. And so if you're a student, or if you're a mum and dad and you've got kids and you want to get them involved in mission, it's a really good way of getting involved in mission. And so you can buy one slice per year, $100. Or you can buy 2 slices, or 3 slices, or 5 slices. So 5 slices will cost you $500 a year. Now this is the trick, this is what I love. We want you to commit to doing that, wait for it, for the rest of your life. So I really want to be speaking to really, really young people here. And doing that, what we'll do is, let's say you signed up and says, yeah, I'll give a slice of wealth pie on October the 1st. 9 months from October the 1st, we'll contact you again. By we, I mean me. We'll contact you again and say, oh, your wealth pie is due in 3 months' time. No pressure, we're just letting you know. So we had one guy, I love this guy, he's my favourite. He bought 12 slices. I love him. But if you just want to buy one slice, knock yourself out. So it's a way of fundraising, but it's not too onerous on people who might struggle to come up with a whole lot of money. And what we'll do is we'll send out our newsletters to you, etc. Because we want to have a relationship with the people who support us, not just trying to grab their money, but have a relationship with people. So that's what we're trying to kick off. And so you can go on our website, you can see it, or sign up, or you can sign up out there, or whatever. But again, I just want to reiterate our gratitude towards the church here for thinking outside of our doors and outside of our community, outside of our city, and outside of our country, and caring for people who really are, some of them are the poorest of the poor. Thank you so much for your care and concern for those people. Really, I mean it, really. And the missions committee here is a very supportive missions committee, actually. They're really interesting. Most churches don't have a functioned missions committee like this one. This one's a bit different. So that's really cool. So thank you so much for your support. And I really want you to know, and I'm not being a salesman when I say this, but I really want you to know that we're seeing some really good things happen. I just don't have time to go through it all. But lives just so being changed. Because there are people who want an education, they want to get ahead, and they just want to get out of the poverty trap. And you enable that to happen. So thank you so much. God bless.